Hello everyone, this is the Promotory channel. Today there will be a video about the ZIL gearbox. Right now I'm working on a gearbox from a PES bus. On the PES we have a higher speed gearbox. So, right now I don't remember the exact model of this gearbox. I'll write it in the description or add the model with the subtitles. I've already worked on it more than once. What's the problem with it right now? Why was it removed? All the gears drop out except for the first and fifth, second, third and fourth. So the first gear is unsynchronized. I see, that's why it doesn't drop out. This one here is second gear, this one here is third gear, fourth gear is direct. But the fifth gear doesn't drop out because during the last repair I installed this new gear. And the condition of these splines is good. During the last repair I also replaced the synchronizers and changed all the bearings. So now we removed it because the gears are slipping out. I looked at these teeth that engage with the synchronizers and they're all worn out. So what other problem do we have? I've already repaired this gearbox several times and all the bearing seats here are already worn out. So the bearings have play here, you can even see it, it's already started to crumble. Also on the intermediate shaft we can see the constant mesh gear has a crack in it. How much work does this gearbox need? So we need to replace all the bearings, replace this constant mesh gear on the intermediate shaft, replace the synchronizers and replace the second and third gears on the secondary shaft as well as the primary shaft. And then there are small things like various washers and gaskets. The housing also needs to be replaced because all the bearing seats are worn out. And here you can see I worked on it before and put in this washer, this ring. You can see how much wear there is. The bearing is already loose in the housing. And as a result, the bearing cup here is also getting worn out. When I added the washer here, but it doesn't really help, so the cup also needs to be replaced as well as some covers and so on. It was estimated that the repair would cost around 40 to 45,000. And now the question is whether a completely new gearbox will be purchased. There are ones for 45,000 and for 60, so well, we'll have to see. Or the second option is to use a ZIL gearbox, meaning there's a gearbox from Soviet times. I looked at the casting here. It's from 1983, still from the Soviet era, the 1980s of the last century. Sounds good. We can see that it was lying somewhere. You can see there's moss already growing on it. So, what are the plans? I haven't started the modifications yet, but I have a general idea of what needs to be done. Now I need to take this box apart and check its overall condition. If the condition is good, then we'll work with this box. And what do I need to do to turn an ordinary ZIL-1 into a high-speed one? So, the first thing I need to do is swap these two gears. This big gear is located here, and it goes with the constant mesh gear. And this gear is located here. It's for the fourth gear of the intermediate shaft. So I need to swap these two. Next, this gear is in good condition because I replaced it with a new one last time. So we'll use this gear for the fifth gear. Well, we'll have to replace the input shaft. This one is in bad condition and the other input shaft is different. So we'll have to get a new input shaft. We've already drained the oil, but it wasn't oil, it was sludge. I'm opening it up to check the condition. Basically, I'm taking it all apart. Let's go. So I've opened the cover and we can see that there's still old Soviet era gear oil in here. I mean, it's really... I can't even turn it. It's so thick, so viscous. You just don't find sludge like this anymore. So we can see that visually all the gears are intact. I can't comment on the synchronizers yet. We're about to take it apart. The main thing is that visually all the gears are intact. Alright, now we'll take it apart completely, clean it, and take a look. Now I need to unscrew these two nuts. To do this, I need to engage two gears so the shafts don't turn, and then unscrew them. Alright, as you can see, I've engaged first gear, and second gear is also engaged. So two gears are engaged, and as a result, the gearbox doesn't turn. Usually we have a 46 mm nut here and here, but now we'll see here we have a 50 mm nut, and the flange doesn't come off, so it's either rusted on or it's just Soviet quality. Everything fits so tightly. So we'll remove the flange with a puller. Now we need to unscrew this nut first. Continue. So I managed to remove the flange somehow. Everything here is rusty, everything is stuck. So you can see that the seal was sitting right here, and under the seal it looks more or less okay. But this inner part, which is inside the gearbox, you can see it's all rusty. There's a many-year layer of rust. So just from condensation, the inner part is completely rusted. There was no lock washer and everything rusted, everything completely. Well, okay, we're not interested in that. We were interested in all the internal parts. All right, next I'm removing the covers and taking out the bearings. I'm taking out the shafts. Alright, we see that instead of a speedometer drive, there's just a washer, basically a spacer, so the flange has something to rest against. Interesting. Where does the speedometer drive come from in this case? Alright, and right away, we can see that the bearing has a crack, meaning the inner race of the bearing is broken. Here we can see the crack. The bearing is a minor issue. We're focused on the shafts and gears. I was going to replace the bearings anyway. Alright, we can see that the bearing has some play. So the bearing is in bad condition, it needs to be replaced, but we can see that it's sitting very tightly in the housing. It doesn't even move. So that's actually very good. We're really happy about that. Alright, we've removed the input shaft. We can see that the bearing has fallen apart, but we don't really need it anyway. I'll repeat, we're not interested in the bearings, we're interested in the shafts and gears. And actually, we're not even interested in this input shaft, since it needs to be replaced anyway. So we can see that the bearing came out of the housing with a lot of effort, which is very good. That's exactly what we want. But it came off the shaft easily without any effort, probably because it's cracked. Here you can see the crack, meaning the inner race of the bearing is broken. That's why it came off the shaft so easily. So, what else do we see right away? We see that this bearing for the primary and secondary shaft, the roller bearing, has crumbled and fallen apart. And we can see that the shaft, the output shaft, has scoring on it, so the shaft is no good and needs to be replaced. But that's not a problem. We can use the shaft from that other gearbox. The shaft there is in good condition. Alright, now I just need to clean everything and check the condition. We have the first gear as well. We'll clean it now and check it too. Now we need to take out the intermediate shaft. Alright, my next task is to clean all of this, disassemble the secondary shaft and check the overall condition of the teeth. And then we'll decide what to do. What we'll take from this gearbox, or if we'll end up buying a new one. Alright, so I washed the shafts, took them out of the washer, and let's see what we've got. So things aren't as good as we'd like. First, the secondary shaft is a write-off because this bearing here fell apart. This bearing, and you can see the scoring here. You can even feel it by touch. There's a dip here, so the shaft is a write-off. Next, we don't need this gear at all. It's from a ZIL. What we're interested in are these two gears. You can see that the oil level was here. So the part of the gear that was in the oil is still in relatively good condition. But the part that was above it, on that part, here you can see the corrosion, and it's not just on the surface. It has penetrated deep inside. There are even pits here, so we can't use this gear either. We can't take it. The only thing we can take is this gear. We can use it for second gear, but again we need to take it apart and check. The condition of the teeth that engage with the synchronizer in general, there's almost nothing usable here except for this gear. So it turns out we won't take anything from this shaft. Nothing here works for us. Now let's look at the intermediate shaft. We can see its condition, and we see that the splines involved in reverse gear are all worn down and chipped like this. So accordingly we won't consider the shaft anymore. So we won't take anything from this shaft. Here we take nothing fits, and accordingly from this shaft we could also take these gears. But I just counted the number of teeth on the input shaft and the number of teeth on fourth gear, and they turned out to be different. So accordingly nothing here fits for us either. So it turns out I took it apart for nothing. Now I'll put it all back. What do we have? So I took apart this Soviet era gearbox and cleaned it. These shafts won't work for us. It turns out things aren't as rosy here as I thought. It's impossible to swap these gears around. There are some nuances, like the shaft diameter, the mounting spot, and the diameters are different. So basically I can do it the way I want it, but I need to use these two gears specifically from PAs. Here we have the ZIL shaft. It comes with keyways, and this is our fourth gear, and this is our fifth overdrive gear. This option is possible, but then you need to use these original PAS gears. Then we'll get something in between a ZIL and a PAS gearbox, meaning the gear ratios for all the gears will change, and we'll need to calculate how it. That's why I didn't get into all of this, because nothing here really suits us. Let me mention another detail. Since the ZIL gear sits on a key, the shaft diameter is 500 smaller. So the PAS shaft is 500 thicker in this spot. So when it's heated, it fits tightly, creating tension, and it clamps on. Because there's no key, in theory, you can use this shaft. But I don't know how it will work in practice, so I won't say anything because I'm not sure. So these shafts won't work for us. Since this one is defective and this one is also already worn out and defective. From this donor gearbox, we're only taking the housing because on our housing, the bearing seats are damaged. So this housing is going to be thrown away. We're taking it from the donor gearbox, from a gearbox from Soviet times. You can see here it's from 1983. We're taking the housing and the bearing cover from it, the front cover of the input shaft. So now we'll clean it up and replace the oil seal. That's it. Everything else stays old, original from this gearbox, except for these parts. So what will be replaced? That's all the bearings, the second gear, third gear, and the input shaft. Since we have a high-speed gearbox, the input shaft, we have direct drive going through the input shaft. The splines here are also worn out. So the input shaft will be replaced. The synchronizers will be replaced as well. This gear will also be replaced because it has a crack in it. I showed this crack earlier. So all these parts will be new. Here they are already. Here we have a set of gaskets, bearings, and all the gears. One synchronizer is still missing, but it should be delivered today. I'll be assembling it on this housing. There are two things to note. So first, we need to transfer this intermediate gear for reverse. That means I need to remove it from this gearbox and install it here. That's the first thing. We can see that here, the shaft is welded together with everything. The bolt, the plate, the housing, and the shaft itself. Everything is welded together, and I don't know why. I'll use the grinder to cut this off, unscrew the bolt, and remove the shaft. So that's what I'm going to do now. So here's the second point. This is the place where we attach the bracket for mounting the clutch slave cylinder like this. The bracket is quite sturdy. It sits on this surface and is fastened with 3 bolts. So we can see that here the wall is flat, but on this gearbox we have an extra opening, an additional opening, and it has a plug. So if we place it like this, then we can see that this part is hitting this cover. I need to do something with this cover now. What do I want to do? I want to take this cover off the old box. You can see that this cover has a rim and this one is flat. I want to take off this cover and put it here. That is, tighten it. Put a gasket with sealant or glue. And here we'll also have a bolt getting in the way. This bolt here will also get in the way. That's why I want to remove the washer. And then, after I tighten everything, I'll use an angle grinder to grind down this bolt so that this bracket sits in this spot without any misalignment. So there are 2 such nuances. It's the cover and the welded reverse shaft, the reverse idler gears. So now I'm going to work on this. From this gearbox, I just need to take out this gear and remove this cover. That's it. The housing is scrap. And I need to clean this gearbox. Also these gasket seating surfaces. Clean off some rust in a few spots. Maybe I'll paint it. I don't know yet. Depends on how much time I have. Alright, let's go. So Let's go. Let's go. So, I cleaned the block like this, wiped it down with a cloth and solvent. Now, my task is to chase the threads. I checked the threads on the covers here, and they seem fine. The only place where the threads are bad is right here on the back, on this cover. The threads are a bit damaged here, and here, where the bracket for the slave cylinder is attached. Now I'll take a tap and chase the threads. To be continued. I cleaned all the covers, including the top cover, the rear covers, and the bearing cap, and prepared everything. This is my progress so far. The gears are on the hot plate warming up now. I'm going to start by assembling the intermediate shaft. I'll put 2 gears on it while it's hot. Then I'll assemble the secondary shaft, and only after that will I install everything into the gearbox. So first I need to do one important thing. Namely, to be continued. So it's already at 100 degrees. To be continued. The plates have already heated up to over 100 degrees. I'm bringing them now. To be continued. So the gears are in place, everything fit well. I put on the ring. To be continued. I'll put the cage in. To be continued. I'll drive the cage into the block. the shaft has cooled down. The shaft is cold. I heated the bearing and I'm installing the bearing while it's hot. To be continued, to be continued. Reverse gear. The block is old, the shaft is old. The only thing is I'm installing new bearings. To be continued. Also, to make sure the shaft fits better there and to prevent oil from leaking in this spot, I'll apply a special adhesive. The shaft is installed. I left the bearing in place and tightened it a bit so that the shaft would be pressed against the bearing at this spot. So later, when I install the secondary shaft, I'll tighten this nut even more. I need to tighten it at least a bit more so that it shifts and I can secure it here. Alright, so the intermediate shaft is already in place. Everything spins well. Sometimes the same gear touches, the casting touches the housing. Everything seems fine to me. Next, I need to assemble the secondary shaft. Alright, so that's it. This way the secondary shaft is assembled. So, unlike for example ZIL gearboxes, here the synchronizer comes as a complete assembly. It isn't meant to be disassembled. The cones are made directly on the gears, and these are the rings. The system here is kind of simpler. Okay, the secondary shaft is assembled. Now I need to install it in the gearbox. Alright, next I need to install a new bearing onto this new primary shaft. From this shaft I only need the ring, this one. Alright, that's it. I installed the bearing using a hot fit HEMA. Well, anyone who's worked with these rings, Russian, domestic, Soviet ones, knows what a pain it is. HEMA. Anyway, you saw how I removed it. It fits a bit better now. Alright, so we take a new bearing. We see that it's in a plastic cage. Now they all come with plastic separators. That's why I don't like it, but since there are no other options, I'll use it. The bearing has cooled, so I'm hammering it in to ensure a tight fit in the block and housing. And the new bearing doesn't have any play. So you can see how well the input shaft sits. Now I need to install the rear bearing, which has been heated on the tile. I'm hammering it in like this. So you can see how everything fit well, how tight everything went in. There's no play anywhere. Everything is just perfect, excellent. The shafts are installed. Everything is fully installed with all bearings and shafts in place. Now I just need to close the covers, front, rear and side covers, and then pour in the oil and put on the top cover. So I heated it up and also installed the speedometer drive. The cover is washed and cleaned. I replaced the seal and put in a new one. Now I take the gasket, take the sealant and install the cover. Alright, so I installed the flange. I applied sealant on the inside face. Well, I don't know, sometimes oil leaks through them, so I always apply it. So I threaded the nut on. Now I need to torque it down. I engaged 2 gears, first and second. Now my gearbox won't turn. I'll lock it in place and tighten both nuts. I also need to remember to tighten the lower one, so I locked it in place like this and put the pipe on. And now I'm trying to tighten it. Okay, that's not convenient, so I'll do it another way. Alright, that's it. I've tightened it and think that's enough. Now I'll stake it a little here so the nuts don't come loose. Well, they don't really come loose anyway, but I'll stake it anyway. As you can see, I turned it about 1 centimeter more here. That's it. I crimped it a little like this. There, all the nuts are tightened. Now I can put this cover on, and all the other covers as well. Alright, now I'm installing the intermediate shaft bearing cover. I also applied sealant, put on the gasket, and I'm installing it. Alright, I'll close the side covers right away. So I installed the cover like this. I didn't forget to put the washer here. It's intentionally without a washer because I already showed there should be a bracket here. It turns out it rests like this. It rests against this bolt. So I need the lowest profile bolt here, and still we can see that it's sticking out by about 5 millimeters. I have 2 options now. Use an angle grinder to cut the head off at an angle like this, or from this side, somewhere around here, I'll mark it. I'll use the angle grinder to cut a square for the bolt to drop in here. I'll decide which option works best. Well, basically it's all doable, it's nothing serious. There's nothing to it? Alright, we'll get to that later. Next, I need to install the second cover. I've already applied sealant to it. Next, I installed the bearing retainer. I also washed and cleaned it. A new oil seal put on the gasket and applied sealant on both sides. Alright, the bearing retainer is in place. Now I need to install the plug right here, like this, a metal disc, a tin disc. So, let's see, it doesn't fit in like this. So, it doesn't go in there. That means I need to bend it the other way, and then when I hammer it in, it'll expand a bit inside. So, we take the old race from this bearing, put a plug in here, and hit the center so it becomes a bit like a cup. Alright, all the covers are installed, everything is closed. Now I need to pour in the oil and close the top cover. So this first gear, this is second, this is third, this is fourth, and this is fifth. So on the ZIL gearbox, the gears go in order: first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Now I'm pouring in the oil. I pour the oil up to the mark. Tatiti kai, tatachin kai. Tatiti 19T gel. So it's for synchronized gearboxes. Specifically, we haven't used this kind of oil in a past gearbox yet. Usually we use this oil in ZF gearboxes and in JOS ones. Well, let's try and see how the P as a gearbox works with this oil. So this is our drain plug and this is our check plug. So right now I've set the gearbox more or less level, and now I'm filling it up until it reaches about this plug. Well, it holds literally about 5.5 liters here. Okay, so here we see the plug and it's about level with the plug. Alright, the oil's in. Now I'm closing the top cover. Okay. So I applied the sealant, put on the gasket, applied sealant here too, and now I'm installing it. Here we set all the gears to neutral and set all the forks to neutral as well. Alright, so I tightened the cover and now I'm trying to shift the gears. I need to make sure that all the gears are engaging. As we can see, everything is fine and all the gears are engaging. So, what's next? Next, I need to somehow fit the bracket. That is, somehow attach this bracket. Now I want to make a mark here to mark where this bolt rests and just cut it with an angle grinder. So, what did I do? I marked it, measured it, marked it again, and just cut out a square like this with an angle grinder. So like this. I made 2 longitudinal cuts, 2 small cross cuts, and just chiseled it out, knocked it out in this direction, and broke it off. That's it. Everything fit well like this. Nothing is hitting anywhere. Everything is even. Everything is great. The gearbox is fully assembled, oil-filled. Everything put together. Everything's great. Next, we'll paint this gearbox. This is how I prepared it. I covered the gear selector with tape, the reverse light sensor, the speedometer drive sensor, the spot where the drive shaft goes in, and the bearing cap. But that's it, I prepared it like this. I'll paint it while it's suspended so I can raise and lower it. I clamped it with a bolt here, put it on the input shaft, and it's hanging by a cable. Next, I took this kind of primer. It's an acrylic primer, and I mixed it, hardener, thinner. It was already a bit thick, so I mixed it, stirred it, and let it sit for a while. And as for the paint, well, I found some paint I had, primer if I have any left. I mixed a lot of primer. I cleaned up here on my workbench and wiped everything down with solvent. If I have primer left, I'll paint everything here with it. I need to paint all the workbenches and everything in one color sometime. Alright, let's begin. I'm painting now. Okay, that's it, the box is painted. This is the color, I don't know, light gray or whatever you call it, dirty white, 8E. The color isn't important, what matters is that it doesn't rust or corrode. That's it, that's how the video turned out. Thank you all for watching, good luck to everyone, goodbye.